Hey, it's Tony from Adafruit, and this is the third part in the Smart Holiday Light project with MicroPython series. So in this video, we're actually going to look at how to make a web page that controls the animation of some Christmas lights, or actually any holiday lights. So you can change the colors, the type of animation, the speed of animation, all using MicroPython and the ESP8266 Wi-Fi microcontroller. And so I say that this is a Smart Holiday Light project because you can control it from a web page. So you can use like a phone or a tablet, something on your network. Because the ESP8266 has Wi-Fi access, it connects to your Wi-Fi network, and then you can connect to the board and control the lights, like the animation and the colors. So in the first two videos, I walked through really all of the MicroPython code to animate a set of neopixels that you can put on like a holiday tree or a wreath, for example. I've actually got here, we'll look at in a second, a wreath. And then, so the first video I looked at just some of the basic animations and how to port from Arduino NeoPixel code over to MicroPython code. So a little bit of different kind of logic, but the same basic idea as far as how to light up NeoPixels and how to animate them. So I converted the TechnoTiki project from Arduino C-based code into MicroPython code. And then the last video, part 2, I looked at how to use the web REPL, which is a way to access the ESP8266 over its Wi-Fi connection. You can access the MicroPython prompt over that Wi-Fi connection. But I looked at an interesting way to use the web REPL to send files to your MicroPython board, like a configuration file that says how the lights should animate, what speed they should use, what colors they should use, those types of things. So that's really the basic building blocks of the Smart Holiday Light, is just having a board connected to your network and then sending a configuration file to it that says, okay, light up with red to green colors at this speed and smoothly fade between the colors, for example. And it'll take that file and save it onto the internal file system of the MicroPython board. And then when the board loads up or starts up, it will just immediately start playing the last animation that it was told to play. So it's kind of nice in that the board will remember what animation it was told to play, so that when it's plugged in, it goes back and plays that last animation that it saw. And all really easily, just using files. And we saw in the second video using the JSON protocol to kind of serialize the animation state from a Python dictionary into a JSON text object, and then letting like a web page create a JSON text object and sending that over to the board and saving it over there and then loading it up, for example. So in this video, we're going to look at just real quickly how to do a basic web interface for this. I think I've done this in other videos, but I just wanted to kind of show, like, this is the final part of making this the smart project. You know, you have to have a web page that you can use to press a button to change the animation or to change the speeds and the colors and things like that. So I'll just go through kind of my thought process of how I very quickly make very basic, simple little user interfaces. I am not a user interface designer. I know enough to be dangerous, and so, you know, we'll get started here and kind of dive in. I'll show you the final project right now, though, real quick, just a quick demo of it. So let's jump to the workbench view with my head in the bottom corner here. So this is a wreath. This is a little 22-inch wreath. I think I got this at Target or someplace. You can find these everywhere, and I'm sure you'll find them for really cheap after January 1st. But this is a nice little decoration, and then wrapped around it, these are neopixels. So this is a strip, this is 4 meters of the 60 pixels per meter, which is a pretty dense neopixel. There's actually 210 neopixels around this wreath, which that's a lot of pixels, it turns out. So you might not need that many neopixels for your project, but it's what I had. Now right here, kind of hidden, this is a nice 5 volt 10 amp power supply, which we have in the shop. And when you're dealing with neopixels, you want a lot of power. 10 amps, you know, 200 pixels. Each pixel can pull, I believe, 30 milliamps or so. So do the math. This 10 amp might not even be enough to power this thing. So don't light it all up. You know, you do make sure that you have the correct amount of power available to this. Anyways, though, let's see how this thing works. So I will go to, let's go back to our main shot, actually, so that we can see kind of everything here. So you can see here's the wreath in the corner again. And oh, and also connected here, this is the ESP8266. I just have it wired into the neopixels. And then right here, this is the power coming in. And there's a little capacitor here, and I'll talk more about this in a second. So I wanted to show, though, here is the web page that I have for this. And what we can do, so this kind of is like the web REPL. If you use that with MicroPython, you give the board URL, which is just like when you connect to the web REPL. You now need to give a password because when you set up the web REPL, as you saw in the first video, you have to give a password and it saves it on that board. So here you type in your password. And then here you pick which animation you want. So let's do the chase animation, the period, which is how fast the animation will run in milliseconds. And then I just have a basic kind of drop down, nothing fancy, you know. Ideally, you'd maybe have some colors here that show you the colors you're using. But let's do blue white. How about that? And then mirroring the colors. This will go back to the past videos, and I talk about how you can choose if you just want a simple little ramp up in colors or a ramp up and ramp down or a mirroring of the colors. And so this lets you turn that on and off because it's state that's saved into that configuration file. Anyways, let's click update lights and see what happens. Hey, check this out. So things are animating here, and you might be able to tell over the camera. It looks like it's blue and white. And this actually looks really nice with these dense 60 neopixels per meter wrapped around this. That 4 meters was just about enough to cover it. Actually had a little bit extra, so maybe 3 to 4 meters is probably enough for a little wreath like this. And I mean, you could always go a little bit less dense, but this looks pretty nice. And then if I want, okay, hey, it's Christmas time, so let's go to red green, and I can update the colors. And there we go. There's a red green chase. If I want to change the type of animation, like the smooth animation, I can do that. And maybe let's change the period. So we'll say like 100 milliseconds. So a little bit faster of an animation here. So I do that. And so now you can see it's kind of pulsing between red and green colors here. And then if I want, here's maybe the blue and red. So this will go between blue and red and with a nice little pink in between. So this is kind of, maybe for every day's a holiday at Adafruit. So you can use blue and red, get a nice pink kind of color there. So that's kind of cool. That's really fun, and it's all just from this web page. I'm just checking these options. Now this web page is being just served from this computer. I don't have it up on any cloud server anywhere because, like the web REPL, this web page, all of its logic is on the web page. There's no server that needs to run. Everything in here is JavaScript because it's using that WebSocket connection that the web REPL on the ESP8266 MicroPython board exposes. So it's kind of cool that you don't really need a server, but you do need some place to put this web page. So like if you want to use it on a phone, for example, you might need to copy the web page over, or you probably want to run like a little Python web server on your somewhere on your network and then access that from your phone. So maybe later, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a fourth part in this video series, but if I do, maybe we'll look at some options for how to do that. So for right now, maybe it's just best controlled from your desktop because that's where you can easily open a little web page like this. But there are lots of other options. I mean, you could throw this up onto Amazon S3 cloud storage or Azure cloud storage, anywhere that lets you host an HTML file, GoDaddy, HostGator, whatever. And then that would work fine too. You can access the web page and then access it from your phone or whatever with this. Anyways, though, yes, but this is what we're going to build real quickly in this stream. So let's go back to maybe the Christmas colors with how about the chase animation. So we'll do that as we play with this stream. So cool. Okay, so that's what we're going to do is just dive into how to make this code work. And then oh, interesting. So before I started this stream, I had some CPU usage problems, and that was because I had a tab in Chrome open that was taking too much CPU. Unfortunately, that tab was the NeoPixel Uber guide, so I'm going to open this back up. If the video gets stuttery, we'll go through this kind of quickly then. So this is the NeoPixel Uber guide. I'll put a link to this in the description when this video goes up on YouTube. Check out this guide. When you're dealing with a lot of neopixels like this, 200 neopixels, that's a lot of neopixels, you really need to pay attention to how you power these neopixels. So like I mentioned, I'm using a 10 amp 5 volt power supply. That's a pretty big power supply, but you need that when you have a lot of pixels. So read this guide. It talks also about using a little capacitor like this to smooth out some of the power delivery so you don't risk damaging your neopixels, because when you have a lot of neopixels, you don't want to damage them usually. So, that's just good precautions, and this is a great guide, so check this out for sure. I'm going to close this. This is the power supply that I'm using. I'll put a link again to this in the description when this goes up on YouTube. 5 volts, 10 amps, really nice supply. This will power almost all NeoPixel projects, and if you have more than 10 amps, then you've got a lot of pixels, and so it's probably a pretty fun project. Okay, so let's dive in then to the code. So last time we had this lights.py file, and what we did last in the second video was we made it read a configuration.json file and load its animation state from that when the board boots up. And then it would figure out which animation function it should run, how fast it should run these animation functions, what colors to use. So all of that came from our lights.py. And then we had this little web page, this lights.html page, and it was very bare bones and basic. And effectively, when you loaded the page, it would just initiate this WebSocket connection, which would connect to the board's web REPL and send it a new configuration state. Like right here, it was sending, here's a new set of colors, here's the speed to use, with type animation, and it would send it to the board using the web REPL's file put operation. And so you can kind of go through and see this was the code that we copied out of the web REPL to make this work. So in this video, really all I'm going to do is modify this lights.html and give it a nicer little interface like I'm showing right here. So let's just kind of dive in and start doing some of this modification. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a library called Bootstrap. And I've mentioned this before. It's a user interface or a CSS library for JavaScript. And again, this video is mostly going to be kind of JavaScript focused because, hey, you're doing a smart project, and that's usually what you're going to use is something like a web technology. So anyways, Bootstrap is what I'm using. It's just a nice little kind of kitchen sink. It gives you nicer styled forms and buttons and objects. Things that I wouldn't be able to style as nicely myself. So if someone else did all the hard work for me, and it's pretty easy to use this library. It also lets you do some layout with some grids and things like that. So I'm going to use that. Now to use Bootstrap, I'm going to use a CDN, which is just someone else that's hosting the Bootstrap library, because there's a CSS file that you need to add and a JavaScript file that you need to add to do that, and so that has to be hosted somewhere. Since I don't have a server, I need to use someone else's server, and luckily this is such a common library, they make it available for you to use on these CDNs. So I'm going to copy out this little CSS include that I need to add to my header here, and then I also need to add a JavaScript include right here. So I'm going to copy this out and add this right there. And then we're not done yet. There's one more JavaScript thing you need to include. You need to include a library called Jquery. And so Jquery is another kind of kitchen sink JavaScript library. It just adds a lot of functions that make it a lot easier to manipulate web pages and web content. I'm going to let's grab the minified version of Jquery. And again, this is served from someone else's server, a CDN that they make available, because this is such a common library. Everyone uses it, so some folks are kind of nice and make this available for free to use. So we'll do that. So we'll include Jquery and Bootstrap. We have to use Jquery because Bootstrap requires Jquery. If you read more about Bootstrap from its webpage, then you'll see that you have to use Bootstrap, use Jquery with it. And then there's also some fancy, nice stuff that we get with Jquery that I want to use. Okay, so this was our old code in here. So let's just save this, and then maybe to save time, because I don't have a ton of time for this stream, I'm going to copy out from the project that I already created, this lights.html. I'm going to copy out the body of this. And this is basically all of the content, so the forms, the buttons, everything. I'm just going to copy into here and save this. So the script still has the same logic. It's still going to use the WebSocket connection. As soon as I load this web page, it's going to change my lights to chase with a blue-red color, or no, a red-green color it looks like. So we should see it switch the logic a little bit. So I'm going to open up the web page real quick. Let's see, let's open the file, and let's open lights.html. And okay, so this is good. So you saw the lights just updated, like they blinked on and off because it sent a new configuration file over. And then if I view the console, I should probably see some console output in here. And yeah, you can see this is the console output of the web REPL, just like we saw in the last video. But now we've got this fancy new user interface here. And I won't spend too much time on this interface. Go to the Bootstrap website. I'll open this back up so I remember to put a link in the description. But you can learn all about Bootstrap here. It tells you about how to get started. So what I did was I just went to its examples here, and I liked this kind of narrow Jumbotron example that they have. So you can see this is kind of similar looking to what I have right here. And all I did was I did a view source on this and then just saw, oh, this is how you define this Jumbotron thing. And then you need this container kind of holder here in Bootstrap. And so that's exactly what I have in my code here. I have this container, which is just how you tell Bootstrap this is the main content of my web page. And then in Bootstrap, you can create rows and columns. It's how it has this grid system laid out. I modified mine a little bit so that I created a row and then I made a column that's 8 columns wide. In Bootstrap, you can have 12 columns in a row. So it's 8 columns wide, and then it's offset 2 columns. So it's basically centered effectively. And so that's why you see, let's see if I close this console. That's why this big Jumbotron thing is in the center. It's not as wide as the entire page. You can see there's still some white space here, and that's just because, you know, I skipped a couple columns. I offsetted it so that it's in the center, just because I figured it looks a little weird when it stretches across the entire page. So I made it a little bit smaller in that case. So that's all that the Jumbotron thing does. And then there's just this header in here that says, you know, here's my Smart Holiday Light project, and here's a paragraph that describes it. Then below that I have another row, and so that's where all of these controls come into play here. And again, this is all from the Bootstrap documentation. So I just went into the CSS page, and they've got a great example here of here's how you build forms with Bootstrap. So they give you the code to create, you know, like a list of forms just like this. And surprise, surprise, when you look at my forms, they look a lot like the example because I've pretty much based it on that. So if you look here, I have a form and then a form group in here. And so the forms that I start with, I have the board URL. So that's the first form that I start with, and that's the URL of my MicroPython board. So that's, you know, as if you're connecting to the web REPL. That's the first thing I start with. Second thing is a password board or password entry. And so again, I'm just kind of taking that from the Bootstrap examples here. They show a password entry. And so this is kind of nice in that if you type in a password here, it hides it. So, you know, you get that for free, which is nice with this. So that's the password. And that's because when you access the web REPL, you have to have the password. And so this is nice. It builds in the password to the web page so the user can specify it. It doesn't have to store it anymore. I had it stored in the clear in the, well, it's actually still here in the code. So, you know, this is maybe not the best, even just like right now, I was just, you know, hard coding in sending Python. So we're going to come back and change this in a second. Okay, so the password, and then I have a list of the animation types, and this is a select, an HTML select. And then there are a bunch of options I put in here. So solid, chase, smooth, blank, and that matches all of the possible animation functions that we had defined before. So blank, solid, chase, and smooth. So that's all in our web page now. And then the value here is nice in that, you know, solid, this is what you actually see on the web page. So it's nice, and it has a capital first letter there. But the actual value you can set so that when I see, okay, which option did the user choose, I can pick the value, which has a lowercase value in here, which is what I need to send to my MicroPython board. I can't send it this solid because remember, it looks up, it tries to find a function with exactly that name. And in my case, my name is lowercase. So, you know, if I didn't have a function named solid with an uppercase S, then, you know, I wouldn't be able to call it. So I do want to be careful to make sure that I get the right values in here for that. Okay, the next thing is the animation period in milliseconds. This is just a text entry, and I give it a default value of 250, so when the page loads up, it just assumes that it starts with 250. So that's one kind of thing to note, is that this is not smart in the sense that it's not reading the configuration from the board. It's just loading up, and it just sends the configuration to your MicroPython board. So maybe a future optimization might be to pull the configuration file from the MicroPython board, see how it was currently configured, and then show that in the UI so the user could go back and choose and say, oh, you know, I was red, green, and now I'm blue, white or something. But we're not going to do that in this video. Okay, then the last thing is, well, there's two last things. There is another selection list with the colors, but you'll see that there's nothing in that color list. But if I go to the web page here, you know, I do, oh, actually I have nothing in here. Well, and we'll come back and see this. When I showed this before, you saw there's a list of colors in there, but we'll see. I'm not populating this because there's some complex data that I want to put in here. And so I'll show how you can actually populate this in code rather than by fixing it ahead of time like I did right here. You know, with the animation types, it's pretty simple and straightforward. You know, it's just a name and a value. Whereas for the colors, I actually need to build this array of color values to send to the board. And I didn't want to represent that in the values and code that in HTML. I think it's easier to put that in JavaScript. So I'll show you how I do that. And then the last thing is a checkbox here that just lets me choose if it's mirrored or not mirrored, you know, this little checkbox here. And then finally a button down here that says, okay, update the lights. You click that and it'll fire off the update. Because right now, as soon as I load the web page, so if I press enter right here, you know, watch the lights, like they pause and they reload because it just went and fired off the connection here. So let's go through and let's start changing this code now so that I want it to work that when I click update lights, it will actually go and connect and do that change. So the first thing I was thinking is, let's just put in some of that logic. So one big change I'm going to make is to use a feature in Bootstrap, or in Jquery rather, called this ready function. And I've mentioned this before. This is basically, you can put in JavaScript code that will only run as soon as all of the resources on the page are loaded. So it's going to wait for like these two JavaScript files to load, and then it will call whatever's inside of this ready function, which is important because if I want to use jQuery and other things, I need to make sure that it's loaded first. So this is a big convention you always see in a lot of web pages where you wait for all of your resources to load. So that's what I want to do. So I'll put all of my code inside of there, inside of this ready kind of tag here, or function rather. So we'll do that. Okay, so not a big change, but we'll do that. Okay, so the next thing now is, how do I add logic? So we'll say main code called when the page loads. Now let's attach a click handler to the update button. So for this, when I click that update lights button right here, I want it to go and actually run this code that sends the new state to my board. So to do that, I'm going to use another part of jQuery. So basically you can select an item on the page, and I'm going to select it by its ID. So on an HTML element, if you give it an ID attribute like this, you can reference it in jQuery if you put a hash, the name of your ID in front of it. So, you know, hash update, this is going to identify this update button right here. And then the cool thing is jQuery has all these functions built in, so there's actually a click function you can call that says, hey, when somebody clicks this button, run this function that I'm going to pass in here, which I can just define in line. That's a nice thing about JavaScript. So let's just put a little console.log, you know, update clicked. So we'll put in that logic. And then let's actually copy all of this in to that click handler function right here. Oops. I think I just deleted it on accident. There we go. Let's copy that out. And now let's put it down. So I'm just moving code around basically so far in this stream. Okay, so now I have all the same code, which is just using this fixed configuration, but now it should work only when I click that button. So I'm going to save this web page. We'll reload it. And then let's open up the JavaScript console so we can see that console output on here. Okay, now I'm going to click update lights and let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So it looked like it worked. It just connected and it fired off that static configuration. And you see all this output here. This is, you know, the output that we saw from the last part, or from earlier, you know, the previous video. I'm going to actually remove this debug output. So I'm going to remove once it's connected. Let's remove this on message handler that prints out the data we receive. You know, let's just get rid of all that stuff. And now we're left with just kind of the bare bones here. Actually, I'm going to even remove this on close handler because, you know, I don't really need that. Okay, so now we're getting closer here. Okay, so now once things are clicked, I want to go and start updating some of this state. So first of all, the board URL, right now it's static and it's fixed, but I actually want to read that from the element that the user provided here. So this input control. And again, it's really similar. You'll see a lot of this is all just using jQuery to say, okay, so instead of fixing this to a value, you know, let's comment this out and let's set board URL to the value of our little form input. So let's get that form, which again, I put an ID on this form, this input type right here. It has the ID of board URL. So if I grab this item, I say board URL, and then there's a nice .val function that gives you the value of that form element in Jquery. So that's all I need to do, and then by default when this page loads, it just assumes this is the web REPL URL, but you can change this if you've set your Python board to run on a different IP address, for example, so it's available to change. Okay, so that should work. That should get my board URL. The next thing was, how about the password? So right now we were just kind of hard coding in the password, which was maybe not the best thing. So let's put it up at the top up here. Let's say password, and again, let's read that from the password. Oh, I should put the hash sign in front of there because I'm getting something based on its ID. So again, password, if I go up to the top, I have my form input element with the ID password. So this is how I get its value, and I say .val for that. And let's just console.log, console.log, the board URL and the console.log password. So let's save that. And so we should see now both those values when I load this page up and I click update. So let's do that. And now I need to make sure I put in the right password. Well, actually, I'm not even using the password yet, but let's just click update lights and see. Yeah, there we go. Update clicked. There is my my board URL, and then here's the password that was typed in here. So, okay, so that's looking good. And then let's actually change our code here where we send the password. Let's send password plus, so we just add the password to that. So, okay, so that should be enough to get us to connect to the board and send the password. Let's just test that that's working. So I should see that the board updates when I click update lights. And so I do that, and oh, I didn't see it update. So something might have gone wrong with this connection here. So let's see what might have gone wrong. If we let's log if we're connected. We'll say connected, and then let's see what happens here. Okay, so now I'm going to click update. Okay, so we connected, but I didn't see the board actually. The lights change like it updated the file here. So interesting that it's not doing that. So okay, let's debug this, because I did this a slightly different way ahead of time. So we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants here. So let's go back to password and let's reload this page and let's just see. Interesting, it's not actually doing. Doesn't look like it's updating my board yet. So I'm connected here, but I don't think I'm actually sending the WebSocket code here. So let's put that on message back, because I do want to see what's happening here. And we'll say on message equals function, and I believe this was the code that I had before for this. And let's console.log. What was the code for that? I'm trying to remember. I just went and deleted it ahead of time. Well, let's just log E. Let's see what we get back in this event for this. So a little bit of on-the-fly debugging for this. Okay, so we get a message event. Oh, e.data is what I want to look at. So it is asking for the password, but this is interesting that, oh, I realize what's wrong here. So first of all, I was sending the wrong password. I was sending password instead of Python. Python is my password that I want to be sending to this board. But anyways, let's keep this debug info in here so that I can more easily see kind of what's going on. Okay, so let's go back to what I had before. So let's keep password plus that RN. Now let's actually see what's happening. So I should see it connected. I should see it ask for my password. And then I should see it also respond back that I'm connected to the web REPL. So, okay, so let's go back. Let's run this. Let's click this. Okay, so it asked for password, but I didn't see, it doesn't look like it actually sent the password correctly. So let's go back and let's console.log what my password looks like, because I might not be getting my password. Oh, I know what's wrong here. So I'm not actually putting a value in there. Duh. I need to type in Python. And now let's click update lights. There we go. Hey, look, everything's working. All right, so the last 5 minutes were just me forgetting to type in the password here. So word to the wise, be careful about what you put in here. And then let's see. Okay, so let's continue on. And just 1 second, actually, I need to, I realized I forgot to turn my phone off. So, all right, let me turn this off. Wait, oops. I was getting a text message. Okay, cool. So that's off. Okay, so let's finish this up now. So I've got the password and the board URL being sent correctly. So we're just parsing those out with Jquery. And then right now it's just sending all of this fixed configuration to my board. So let's update this so that we're not sending all of this fixed configuration. Let's get the period, the animation speed. And again, this is all just some Jquery magic here. So that period I have stored in this form control, the animation period, and that has an ID of period ms. So if I grab this value, this is easy to put in. We'll say period ms dot value. Okay, so that's easy. Now mirror colors. So I have this checkbox, and it has an ID of mirror. And then the way to check if something is if a checkbox is checked or not in Jquery, turns out it's a little bit weird, a little bit different. So I have this mirror option, and then what you want to do is call .prop checked. And what this does is this returns back true if you have a checked property, which is what it has, which means if it's been checked or not by the user. And if you don't have that checked property, it returns false. And that's what I want. I want a true-false value for this. Okay, then the animation chase, this is easy because in this drop-down list right here, I have all my animation values, and I can just grab the value and it's going to return back if it's solid, chase, smooth, blank, whatever. So let's grab that value. And again, I just have to pick the animation control based on its ID and then just grab its value right there. So, okay, so let's save that. So now when I reload this page, and actually I'm going to comment out this debug output here, just so that we don't see as much junk on the console here. Okay, so I reload it. Now I remember, type in my password. So I should be able to change the animation now. So it should control the solid animation, the speed of the animation. The color doesn't work yet. We're going to come back to that in a second. And the mirroring. So when I click this, okay, that didn't work. So something just went wrong here. So let's see. Boy, this is a debugging stream that we're going through here. So let's see what I might have done wrong with my board here. So before it sends out the configuration, let's have it log my configuration right here. So let's have it do this, because I must have sent something wrong to the board, that it went into its blank state, like it didn't know which animation it should use. So when I do this, and I didn't have the password set, but that's okay. So animation is solid. The colors are fixed to the array of colors that I had here. That's fine. Mirroring the colors. So my period in milliseconds. This is a weird little JavaScript gotcha. It's a text value, but I actually want a numeric value in here. So the way to do that in JavaScript is you wrap your text value in number. And so this is going to convert it into a numeric value, for which there is a difference in JSON or the JavaScript object notation. A string value is different from a numeric value. Okay, I just reloaded the page. If I type in Python, then this should hopefully update. So I do that, and there we go. Our lights are flashing again. And so you can see this is the configuration, and now you see it's 250 instead of the string 250 value. So that was the problem. I was sending a string which got saved in my JSON file on my board as a string, and then that wasn't able to be parsed. So that was the problem there. It needed to be a number instead of a string for that. So little gotchas. Okay, so let's get that color working. And for that, I'm going to go back to what I did ahead of time, just because I want to pull out this list of colors, because like I said, I want to populate my colors based on just a static configuration that I set ahead of time. So let's just create, this is a list of colors. So this is an array, and each of the elements of the array is a JavaScript object like this. And maybe I'll just make this a little bit larger so you can see them. And each of these objects has a name. So this is what I want to put inside of the drop-down list. And then there's also a value inside of here. And so this is the color value that I want it to use. So let's have it when the page loads, populate that list. And so I can do that if I go the for each. So if I loop through each of the elements of this colors list, I can run a function against that, and that'll take the color and the index I. And then to add, so what I want to do is in my page, I want to add these options to this color select list right here. So I'll show you how to do that in Jquery. It's a little bit weird, but basically I want to select that colors select, and then I want to append a new item to it, a new child, and then I need to create, and this is kind of a weird Jquery thing, a new option, and then I'll close this option. So I'm creating a new option element, but I want to add an attribute to it, like the value attribute. Oops, wow, I need to give the string value. And so for the value of this, I'm actually going to give the index, and we'll come back to this in a second though. And then I also want to set the text on this equal to the color.name. Okay, so let's unpack this. So basically what's happening here, I'm picking that colors select list, and I'm adding for each of these colors inside of my array, I'm going to add a new option to it. So it's going to create a new option element and add it to that. And then for each of those option elements, it's going to set its value equal to its position, its index into this array. So the first one will have a value of 0, the second one will have a value of 1, and so forth. So that way I can go back and refer to which one the user chose. And then the text it's going to set to just the name of that color. So like blue, white, red, green, that type of stuff. So let's save this and let's reload our page. And okay, cool. So now we see it populated everything. So I've got, you know, which color I have selected. But now let's put in the last little bit of logic to read the color that was selected and actually use that color. So in this case, I want to set colors equal to something inside of this color list, but I need to pick which element the user had selected. And the way I can do that is because remember, I'm setting the value of each of these options inside of that list equal to the index of the color inside of that color list. I can just use the value effectively for that. So if I pick, so I want to use the Jquery, and we'll say grab the colors.val, and this will actually pick the value of the currently selected item in that drop-down list. So it's just a weird little kind of Jquery thing. So that's going to pick which of my color objects the user has selected, and then I really actually want to get the value attribute from that object because that's the actual array of colors for this. So this is really the syntax that I want for this. So this is going to pick within that color array which color the user selected based on this, and then it's going to grab the value, which is this little attribute I set ahead of time, which is the list of colors for this. So let's save this and let's see what's going to happen here. So I reload the page. Okay, so now if I put in my password, we say Python, and let's do the chase animation, and let's do blue-red. Okay, so now fingers crossed, I got everything right. I click this, and hey, check this out. We've got blue and red color chasing animation here, and I should be able to change this. So like we'll go red-green, we do that, and now we see new colors. If I want to change the speed, maybe let's make this 100. I do that, and we get a faster animation here for this. So that's cool. So that's pretty much all that I wanted to show here. You know, we've hooked it up, and we've got all of the animations and colors. If I want, like, let's turn off the mirroring. So let's disable the mirroring and see how this changes it. So it's a little hard to tell, but it's more abrupt. When it goes red to green, there's it's a quick little drop off. It doesn't go back up and back down. Whereas if I go back and mirror it again, then it kind of changes the color. So it's a little bit smoother in this case. So that's kind of cool. This is the Smart Holiday Light project. You know, basically I just wanted to build on the previous video where we had all the MicroPython code that reads that configuration file, that lets the web REPL send a new configuration file to it. And then I just whipped up a quick little Bootstrap Jquery based interface here. You know, it's not the prettiest interface in the world, but it does get the job done. So I can choose, you know, which colors and what holiday I want to make these lights light up for. In this case, like here's like the blue and white lights, for example. So that's it. So it's really just a little bit of jQuery and some Bootstrap magic, and you can make something that doesn't look completely horrible for a user interface. I'm not going to say this is great, but this is definitely better than just some basic text or something like that. So okay, so if folks have questions, maybe throw them into the chat, and I'll get to them real quick. I'm kind of running out of time. I had a hard stop that I have to get to in a second here. So oops, let me go back to the main kind of headshot here. And I don't think there was a bunch of stuff in the chat, so let's go back up here. Let's see. So, and I think, yes, I think some folks were noticing some of the problems I had earlier with not putting the password in. Let's see, yeah, some folks were talking about doing their own Christmas lights project. So yeah, if you do a Christmas lights project, be sure to show it off on Show and Tell every Wednesday at oh boy, I'm trying to remember, what is the time in Eastern time? 7:30 Eastern, I believe it is. Check out Adafruit's YouTube page. Although Show and Tell has kind of changed recently because Google Hangouts was down, so I don't know, we'll see what happens. Go to Adafruit's Google Plus page, and you'll usually see a post that talks about when Show and Tell happens. But show off your projects, even if it's not through Show and Tell. Do a YouTube video and show off what you've done, because it's always cool to see cool Christmas projects here. So, okay, I think that's it then. So no questions, so I'll wrap this up. Again, this is a quick stream. I just wanted to run through doing the interface for the Smart Holiday Lights project. I'm going to write this up as a guide that will probably be out in the Learning System on Friday. So I'm not sure, maybe I'll do another quick little kind of final video on it, but I just wanted to show this one of how to evolve the project to use a little web interface. Check out youtube.com/Adafruit. You can see this project and all kinds of other fun project videos. Twitch.tv/Adafruit. That's where I like to stream these things live. I like to do a stream on Tuesdays and on Fridays. So again, look forward to Friday. I'm not sure what I'm going to do this Friday. So I'm getting more into project-based things with MicroPython. So for sure it'll be a MicroPython thing, but I'm not sure. It could be the start of a new project, or maybe we'll do more with the Holiday Lights project. So stay tuned to see what happens this week with MicroPython and some of the fun projects we're doing. Until next time, though, this is Tony from Adafruit. So if you like this content, click the like button, click the comment, let us know that this is good stuff, and we'll keep creating cool content like this. Until next time, Tony from Adafruit. So thanks for watching.